Let us pray. Good and gracious God, giver of all good gifts, we ask you to gift us with your presence and help us to be aware of you in all things, but most of all in all people without exception. Teach us to be aware of the needs of others and how we can be of service. Bless us with the ability to make a difference in our world. As athletes, give us the strength and ability to lead on and off the field or court. May we, with your help, always strive to be better and intentional in all the things that we do. May we praise your name now and forever. Amen.
Tonight, what we're going to do is spend probably about 35 to 40 minutes kicking off our year. Each year, inside the L, we have a theme, and Matt Davidson does an excellent job of kind of setting course. Matt Davidson, as our presenter, works with the Institute, with Excellence with Integrity Institute. It's out of Fayetteville, but we're fortunate. Matt not only works with Moyne, he also works with other Jesuit schools, such as Fairfield, such as Scranton. I've been fortunate enough to go to the Pope and as far as the having a summit there with athletics. He was able to present what we do at Moyne. He's been fortunate enough to also work with other bigger schools such as Purdue, Stanford, and with some other coaches groups such as women's softball, women's lacrosse. And he's doing some stuff right now nationally with women's basketball, divisions 1, 2, and 3. Without further ado, I want to turn it over to Matt so we can get started tonight. Thank you for your patience with getting this meeting started. And thank you again, Matt Davidson.
Hey everybody, great to be together, even if it is in a digital format. Really do truly appreciate the opportunity to come back together with y'all. For folks who are just joining us, it's a special night usually when we gather together in the James Commons. We're all there. It's tight quarters, and it's a chance to really come together as a culture and as a community. We still want to have a piece of that ritual done well tonight by going after some of our foundational things related to our Inside the Yell culture. I know as we center tonight here, 9 o'clock in the middle of a week, a couple of weeks into school, this isn't an easy time. This isn't an easy time to meet. This isn't an easy time for anybody. There's nothing really normal about what we've been doing. And what we're trying to do again and again and again is to center ourselves the best we can and to make the best out of what we've got. There's a spiritual adage that says the message is received according to the openness of the receiver. If a receiver is closed, you don't get very much. The more open you are, the more you get. This is true in our sport. Coaches coach the same way every single day. Sometimes you find you're not that open to it, and therefore you don't get that much. As you begin to open more and more up to that feedback, more up to the teaching and learning, you get more from it. So I guess the prayer, the opportunity tonight is to continue to try to find ways to open yourself up to what's happening right now. We know how valuable your time is. We know we're pushing you by coming together at 9 o'clock on a Zoom when you've been doing Zoom meetings and all different kinds of things. I promise you a lot of planning, a lot of thought has gone into this. Feedback from coaches, from everybody within our department to try to present something tonight that is hopefully deeply relevant to where we find ourselves as a department. What is our goal? Our collective goal for this semester, for this time period, simply put, is to win the weight. Right at the outset, we want to be thinking about, tonight's presentation is similar to, but different than other presentations that we've done. But we really, as a department, are talking about winning the weight. Our collective focus and intention is to resist getting softer, selfish, smaller, divided, distracted, fragile, or fearful. We don't want to go through this time period with all the things going on right now and be worse for it. We really want to use these unprecedented times as a way to grow, to learn, to develop, to change, to build. And I know that's a lofty goal. Maybe you're just tired of it all. Maybe you want a lot of these things to just stop and to go away. We all do. And yet that's not what's presented to us. What's presented to us is a set of circumstances that we really believe will make us better if we utilize them. Throughout tonight's presentation, I'm going to throw a couple of questions at you. I recognize it's late. Maybe you don't have a pad of paper near you. Maybe you've got a pad of something that you can scratch on. I want to ask you some questions. I want to have you be thinking and interacting, and then our coaches will be following up over the next days and weeks to dig back into these. So here's one of my first questions for you. What are your goals for winning the weight? If I asked you, each person, what's your goal? Not simply to survive. You don't want to lose the weight, but what does winning mean? What are your goals for winning yourself? How are you going to be different in mind, body, and spirit? What about for your teammates? How are you going to grow closer? How are you going to go more flexible, more trust, more communication, more honesty? Here's the challenge. We've been in this about 6 months. You've been in school about 3 or 4 weeks. If we don't know what our goals are for this time period, it's dangerous. Once we don't know what our goals are, then all we focus on are the things that are not in our control. So we're challenging ourselves as a department, as a staff, as leaders, administrators, everybody in this department to get clear about what our personal goals are and what our collective goals are as we move forward. Here are the goals that we had for Inside the L when we first got started. They are the same now as they were then. These were the goals put to us by the board. These are the goals that we challenged ourselves by as a department to become nationally premier, a Division II athletic department in the Jesuit tradition. Nationally premier athletic department in the Jesuit tradition. Nationally premier in terms of winning, losing, academics, in terms of all of the different elements of not simply being local, but national. An athletic department, not a team, department with 1 or 2 flagship teams, but an entire department where the competitive excellence is very, very high. In the Jesuit tradition, our Jesuit foundations, our Jesuit values are at the core of what we've been trying to do. This goal doesn't go away because we got a pandemic. It doesn't go away because we're in the middle of some unprecedented times. We're still challenging ourselves by these goals. How do we go after that goal? We go back to our bedrock Jesuit values. If you're a freshman or a newcomer to the program, you may never have heard of the term magis or cura personalis. These are terms that are part of a 500-year-old Jesuit tradition. And as a department, we began some years back to really trying to translate these down to say, what do they mean for us in this department right now? So when we talk about magis, that restless discontent with mediocrity, what we were really talking about with excellence with integrity. Now, maybe you've seen this on the wall or in the athletic center. Maybe it was part of a brochure that a coach sent to you. But what we're really trying to begin to show you is these are not just words on the wall. These are the foundations of our culture. We took those Jesuit ideas and we really put them within our optimal performance theory. Over the last 25 years, we've been working with teams and organizations to try to figure out where optimal performance comes from. And we would say it's the strength and synergy of these 4 things: excellence, integrity, solidarity, harmony, magis, cura personalis, men and women for others, action and reflection. If you go back and you look at this touchstone, you might say, well, this looks like 5 independent things, 5 values, 5 separate things. When in fact, what we're trying to do is to put those together in a way that is strong and powerful and balanced. The stronger our quest for excellence, the more important it is that we have strong integrity. In Jesuit language, the more we're striving for magis, the more the care of ourselves, cura personalis, is important. We're not simply talking about intrapersonal work, we're also talking about being men and women for and with other. So in our Jesuit touchstone, we're really tapping into an optimal performance theory about where excellence comes from. Where excellence comes from is culture. Every university, every team, every company that we work with is recruiting for talented individuals. If you're at Moyne, it's because you were a good enough student, a good enough athlete. excellence is not simply about recruiting for talent. Talent is important, but culture is really where optimal performance comes from. And what we're talking about is a kind of collective safety and trust and a collective confidence within each team and within the entire department. You might have a team where you have a bunch of talented individuals, but they don't trust each other. They don't feel safe. They don't show their real selves. They don't talk about their fears, their hopes, their dreams. They hide. If they don't have a kind of safety and a kind of trust, you're not going to get optimal performance. Same thing with confidence. And that's really what we're trying to go after. If you're new to the program, or if you're a veteran to this program, I do want to remind us that this vision of being a premier national athletic department in the Jesuit tradition, we take it very, very seriously. And we have made strides in terms of the achievements. By almost any athletic measure, we have made strides from when we started. More wins, more higher academic performance. All the different goals that we set for ourselves have gone up, including, as Coach Evans said, being really the one athletic department that was featured at the Vatican Conference in Rome, Sport at the Service of Humanity. So again, I want us to have pride in what we've done, but also to approach this time period with the same standards. That's why it's important to us to win the weight. If we set our bar low and say, oh, we're just going to get through this and then we'll take off, that's not going to work. We're going to step backwards versus really challenging ourselves to step forward. Each year, we take one of 4 themes and we try to squeeze our touchstone to get some more light out of it, some more heat out of it. This year's theme within the cycle was Be the Change. And I would argue that by grace, you could not have picked a better theme for this particular year. We've covered this theme before, but like all of our themes, when we get to it, it's always fresh, it's always new, and the idea of Be the Change has never meant more. In our programming, what we're trying to do is to take our theme, and then we do some things that are universal, like this for the entire department. We do targeted programs for captains, for particular cohorts. And then we also try to do really intensive programming around particular topics or particular needs. If you're new to the program, you'll experience some of these as we go forward. Tonight is just one practice, one workout that we do as our culture. One that we want to highlight tonight is called Leadership Essentials. It's a new derivative that we've been working on with a number of athletic departments around the country. And we put a version of this together to work on for this fall. 9 workouts that are really designed to go after the intrapersonal development and interpersonal development needed to thrive. Now, these themes, these workouts are themes that are deeply relevant because of the COVID, because of the social justice challenges that we've got, because of the mental health challenges that we see in intercollegiate athletics. They're also very, very relevant based on the data that we collect from teams. When we collect data at Moyne and in other places, athletic departments around the country, we hear from student athletes them saying things like, I need to work on the intrapersonal elements of my game, getting rid of fear, playing present, being able to really give and receive constructive criticism, having a growth mindset. We're working on these this fall in particular and into the spring because we have the time and we have the space and there is a need. I would argue that in terms of strength and conditioning for culture, these are the most important workouts that we could be doing. You might not want to do them. You might not have chosen to do them. But in all the teams that we work with in all the different settings, if people were to ask, what are the things between the ears, in the gut, within our team that we can improve upon, this is it. Now, here's an important piece of our programming this year and every year. We have a whole department approach to whole person development. We don't require student athletes to do a lot of compliance work. We don't have you sit down and take the little check the box project. We don't even really have you do independent work where you got to do a workbook. And what we're doing is whole department work, which means our coaches lead the program. In Leadership Essentials, our coaches are meeting each week for 9 weeks to talk about these ideas ourselves. How can we utilize these in our own lives? How can we utilize these within our team? They're putting in the time, the energy, the work to make themselves vulnerable, to make themselves grow, to challenge themselves, to build up our own community in the department. So again and again, what we would say is you can't teach where you won't go. And what we're really trying to do is to show you that tonight, you might say to yourself, well, geez, we had to come at 9 o'clock. Well, so did coaches. They're here, they're in the room, they're listening, they're working. So again, whole department, why? Because we believe in the power of culture. We think culture is shaped, tested, and often corrupted at the intersection of the urgent and the important. What's that mean? We got our vision, we got our values, that's really important stuff. But when a pandemic hits, or if you're in the middle of a season and you have an injury, it seems like our values and our vision are on two separate parallel paths. When those ideas intersect and have something to say about each other, that's when it matters. You may care about some of those values if you start saying to yourself, it'll help me play present. It'll help me get more joy, find more happiness, rediscover the drive for my game. It might help me connect with my coach, understand better how to get the most from my athletic experience. That's what we're really trying to do. This past week, the Holy Father, Pope Francis, who is himself a Jesuit, had a beautiful quote that really spoke to me in terms of what we're talking about. He says, you don't come out from a crisis the same as before. You either come out worse or better. We must choose, his words. Solidarity is the way to come out better. Now, I put in brackets the better because one of our themes drawn from Jesuit thinking is choose the better. In the short term, in the long term, for the good of the group, for the good of yourself. The idea that we must choose how we're going to respond in this. And he's making it very clear. You can't come out the same. You're either going to be worse or better. But he's also speaking to the idea of solidarity as the way to come out better. What's that mean? What we're saying is our culture is shaped by and impacted by the things that are going on in our world. There's a pandemic. There's a new kind of urgency around social justice. There's a mental health conversation going on across our country, but in particular in athletics. That is impacted by our culture. Our culture has something to offer and to say about these things. Those things deeply impact our culture. We can't pretend like this is a normal year and that COVID-19 isn't going on. We're shaped and impacted by it. What does solidarity mean? One way to look at it is when we said all in, all one, all Dolphins, that's a kind of solidarity. Synonym might be teamwork, but I think solidarity is even stronger. A community unified in mind, heart, and habits. We're not trying to help you get through this by yourself, one at a time. We believe we're going to get through this together and be better through the solidarity within our community. And that's why we're having these conversations. That's why we're working on this stuff. That's why we're trying to challenge this head on, as opposed to saying, geez, I hope this goes away. A second question. First one, what were your goals? What are your goals right now to win the weight? If you don't have those written down, I want to be more flexible, more strong, more agile, more mentally tough. I want to be a better, if you don't know what those goals are, my hunch is that this time period is going to leave you worse. Here's the question as you look back. We're 6 months into this. Can you honestly say, have you made progress? Are you better in mind, body, and spirit? Stronger, faster, smarter, tougher, flexible, agile, more selfless? Are you better or worse? Are you weaker, slower, dumber, softer, more jaded, hardened, inflexible, or selfish? There have been a number of times as I'm looking at these questions and asking myself this where I can't tell. Some days I honestly think I'm worse. I honestly think I'm softer. I find more things that I can't control to worry about. I feel like I'm inflexible. I want things done the way I want them done and when I want them done. What we need to keep reflecting on is if we're 6 months in and we ain't better, we're probably heading towards being worse. That's true as an athlete. That's true as a student. That's true as a person. And that's what we really want to do is start thinking to ourselves, How can we win the weight? So as we think about that, we want to just dig in a little bit to our theme. And what I did was we broke down our theme in 3 different ways. And I just want to give you a couple of brain sparks to think about this. When we pick our theme, we're drawing it from our touchstone. Transformational love, a love that changes or transforms, and a commitment to be the change. And we're looking at this 3 ways. 1, you must be the change. There is a you in this. We'll talk a little bit about that. You must be the change in your world. If your world is your team, your dorm, your college campus, you have to look and say, how am I being the change for the people most around me? And then finally, it is Jesuit education that prepares us to go forth and set the world on fire, in the language of St. Ignatius. How do we go and do that? You aren't going to change the world if you don't change yourself, and if you haven't done some work within your teams. But if we do those first 2 things, we really are prepared now and in the future to start challenging ourselves on that. Couple thoughts about you be the change. When we say you be the change, we're really trying to look inside of ourselves. And right now, a very Ignatian idea that we need is acceptance and detachment. Acceptance. I accept what is as it is, believing that something good will come of it. I am detached. I detach myself from where I think it should go, how I think it will be. I have to let go of my plans, but without apathy. Apathy means I don't care. Radical acceptance means, hey, if this is the path I've got to go, I stop trying to fight with that. I accept it, and I believe something good is going to happen of it. We have to start valuing the process. If you're not valuing the journey, the growth, the battle, if you're just looking at the outcome or the reward, you're probably not a very happy athlete. You're probably not a very happy student. And right now, in a situation like this, you're probably miserable. You have to look, we have to go back and say, the journey is the reward. I can see growth. I want to battle. And I want to battle with what is the case. I can only work out with 2 of my teammates. I have to stay isolated from people. I have to wear this dang mask, and I can't communicate. I can't connect with people. That is part of the battle. We have to value it. But when we talk about you be the change, you be the change, St. Ignatius talked a lot about avoiding isolation, especially when you're in desolation. This is a time where we desperately need to be careful avoiding isolation for ourselves. You start feeling sad, you start feeling mad, you start pulling away from people. Maybe you like the social isolation more than you should. I personally have found myself thinking, I really miss the juice of being around people. Avoid isolation in yourself and in others. Not letting teammates pull away, not letting somebody who seems to be struggle in desolation. When we talk about mental health, we're really talking about, 1, what you can do for yourself, but don't forget airline safety. First, I put on my own mask, but then I put on the mask of someone near me. And when we're talking about you be the change, we really want to go after that. When we talk about you be the change, we want to really think about St. Ignatius' idea of follow your emotions. To regularly be asking ourselves, what am I feeling? It may be anger, it might be frustration, it might be gratitude. A number of coaches have pointed out what we're feeling is grief. The loss of last season, the loss of competition, the loss of my sport where I found my identity. It's grief. It's not anger, it's grief. Sometimes, though, has its own stages, right? So when we ask ourselves, what am I feeling? We want to name it. I think today it's anger. I think it's grief. I actually just think I'm feeling lazy. We want to frame it. Can I understand? Well, I probably feel lazy because I haven't been eating that well. I'm not really working out. I'm letting myself whine too much. Whatever emotion you might be feeling, we also want to challenge it and see if we can expand it. If you can get beyond anger to, I'm beyond anger, I'm starting to get to frustration. Frustration is different. When we just stay with one, we want emotional diversity. The final one, believe it or not, is ignore it. In his book, Abandonment to Divine Providence, the Jesuit Jean-Pierre de Caussade said, at some point, you got to be really conscious of what your feelings are, and then you need to ignore them. If you've ever had a workout where it felt really terrible and every part of your mind, body, spirit wanted to quit, and yet you knew it was pushing you, you knew it felt better. Sometimes it doesn't feel good to force yourself to do what you need to do when you need to do it. So we want to be aware of those. And then sometimes I'm feeling lazy. I'm going to ignore that and push through it. Or am I going to respond, reflect? It's a discernment process. Sometimes we push through to our own detriment. Sometimes we stay stuck. Follow our emotions. Can we find God in all things? A distinctly Jesuit idea, finding God in all things. You may say to yourself, well, look, I'm not even Catholic. I'm not even sure if I pray. Prayer is simply a dialogue where we focus on our intentions and our attention. And I would say we all have to be praying when we're in adverse situations. The ability to find God, find some goodness, find something to be grateful for requires that we ask ourselves, what's my intention? What am I working for? What's my goal? What am I ready to let go of? If we don't put an intention to an assignment, to a workout, to something that we're doing for ourselves, if we just do it, not only will you not find God, you won't find much joy, you won't find much gratitude, right? So intention and attention. What am I focused on? My regrets, my worries, my fears, the rumors, the headlines, the things I can't control. Or am I really focused in on the workout, the time outside, the conversation with a friend? Intention and attention is one of the important things that we're trying to do as we begin to go after our own ability to be the change ourselves. What's it mean to be the change in your world right now? One, it means to have the courage to share your real self. I would argue, if you don't know Brené Brown's work, you can pick up any one of her books and you'll be better off for it, especially now. She talks a lot about the importance of vulnerability, courage, and what some spiritual authors called finding the real self. A lot of us have fake selves. It's about our identity. It's about our ego. It's about looking good. We don't really show the warm, true, deep emotional part of us. We have to have the courage to share that. And we also have to have the courage to hear hard truths from others. Right? We don't want to go to the shame and blame. If someone else says to you, I'm really feeling sad, and your first thought is, what? Well, that's because you deserve it. You haven't done your work. You're not meditating. If you think about the national conversations going on around social justice, we have a very, very hard time hearing hard truths from others. Why? Because a lot of times you feel shame, you feel embarrassment. That's how I personally feel a lot of times. I didn't mean to hurt somebody, but as I hear their courageous truth, it sounds like I did. We find common ground in our world by sharing our adversity, our stories, our struggles. And if we can get past trying to do the shame and blame, we can really begin to see that, look, you're white, I'm black. You grew up rich, I grew up poor. But we both had a hard family life. We both had fathers who died young. We both had alcohol involved in our. When we share our adversities, we really find that there's a lot of common ground there, but we got to get through it. Brené Brown says, people are hard to hate close up, so move in. But here's the thing. You may say, well, look, our team, we like everybody. That's probably true. A lot of teams like each other and yet don't trust each other enough to share hard truths. And that's something that we really could break down and work on as we move forward. These echo chambers that we create are what we need to break down within our team and within our communities. If you think about what an echo chamber is, we surround ourselves by people who look and sound and feel and act like us. And I'm not just talking about culture, big C, in the world. Think about what you do in a team. If you're not playing and you're having a rough go of it, what do? Cluster with people at the end of the bench who are having a similar experience. What do you say to each other? Hey, coach is no good. She doesn't know how awesome I am. I work harder. You're right. You're right. What do we do on racial conversations? We sit in suburbia with other white people looking at us and go, I'm not a racist. No, you're not. I'm not either. These culture chambers, these echo chambers where all we want to hear is what we want to hear. I'll challenge you as athletes. Sometimes, if you're not sitting down at the end of the bench, who are you calling to create an echo chamber when things aren't good? Our parents. Coach doesn't want to know what's going on. They recruited me to play, but they're not playing. What do your parents say often? You're right, you're right. When coaches are trying to get you to change, trying to get you to hear hard truths, Doesn't mean that they're always right, but if we can't get some truth channels, some little pockets where the truth comes through, what we do is just simply reinforce, you're good, I'm good, you're not doing anything wrong, I'm not doing anything wrong. That's something that will really cramp our worlds. Simplest definition of God, God is love. St. Ignatius says love exists in communication. I think that's why we struggle so much within our world around communication. Bell Hooks, the author, said, without justice, there can be no love. And if you think about that, whether it's in your team or whether it's in the world, if you tell someone you love them and then continue to do things that hurt them, they're probably going to have a hard time believing you. Love requires justice, a sense of giving somebody their due. And what Bell Hooks is talking about is love is an action. So within our teams, within our words, you can't just say, I want to hear what you have to say. I value your opinion. You got to hear it. You got to listen to it, even when it's hard, even when it's a hard truth. You got to step up, speak up, push yourself out of your comfort zone. So before we go changing the world within our own teams, within our own departments, there's an awful lot of fear, anxiety, weakness. If I ask you, like, how truthful are you in your teams? I think a lot of people will say, we're nice, but we don't get too deep, right? So as we're looking to be the change in our world, we really want to push ourselves out of that. That's why when we say men and women leading others, we're really talking about the difference between leaders, participants, and detractors. We want leaders in this department, on your team, in all the different areas where you're not only doing your part, you're pushing other people to do it. You're not just going through the motions, and you're certainly not detracting people from what we're trying to do. And if you think about being a leader in your team around COVID, 1,000 examples and 1,000 opportunities to lead both by example and what you do, but also in what you say. Mental health. What's it mean to be a leader in mental health? One, you do your own work. Second, you're courageous enough to share that with others. Once you share, other people are willing to do that. You reach out to other people. Once we start thinking about being the change in our world, it's not big dramatic stuff. It's a lot of hard work within myself and a lot of courageous vulnerability where we're willing to share with the people that are around us. We probably have a pretty good culture, a pretty safe culture in most of our teams. What we're trying to do as we're winning the weight is to make them even more resilient, even more honest, even more vulnerable. So you get back out there and play. You don't have a problem saying to somebody, hey, you're not working hard enough, or give me the ball when I'm open. You can also talk about things that are going on in the world. There's nothing as a team that we couldn't go after. That's what it means to win the weight when we're talking about leading in your world. Again, collective safety and trust, collective confidence, deep trust, interpersonal vulnerability. We don't just say, hi, I know where you live. We're really trying to get to know each other so that we can be stronger together, be more confident when we most need. What's it mean to be the change in the world? Look, it's a big, messy world, and I think right now, a lot of us, myself included, feel very, very downtrodden, unable to see, like, how can I make a difference in all the stuff that is going on? What we're trying to do in and through this year and in and through our department is to build up the kind of culture strengths inside ourselves and with each other where we have a new kind of awareness, responsibility, and justice. If we go after some of the things that I've just laid out in earnest, as coaches, as staff within our team, we are going to be ready to serve in our communities. We're going to be ready to answer the call in the world. And to be perfectly honest, if we're not ready to be the change, me personally, be the change within our team, I don't know how you're going to go forth and set the world on fire if you're not even really willing to set yourself on fire, to break down old thoughts that you had, old patterns, old habits, or to challenge teammates. So we're really trying to build this up. When we think about the work that we're doing, we're talking about strength and conditioning needed for the challenge before us. You need it if you're going to be a great student athlete. You need it if you're going to be a competitive team. Right now, what we're arguing is there is strength and conditioning needed for the cultural pandemic, all the different things that were going on. That's why we think we can win the weight and come out on the other side better. We may hate it. I wish we were playing. I wish we were in person. I wish a whole bunch of things. But to the core of my being, I believe we could come out stronger from this if we really embraced it, didn't try to have somebody take the weight off us every time it gets a little bit shaky. General Douglas MacArthur, when he was at West Point, he had this famous quote where he said, "On the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds that on other days and other fields will bear the fruits of victory." What was he saying? He was basically saying sports in the military academies, the fields of strife. As you learn to compete and to battle in and through sports, someday you're going to see them in other areas of your life. If we look at it this way and say, look, the fields of friendly strife aren't the ones we would have chose for this year, but they're still there. And I believe if we win those, we're going to be more prepared in other areas. What we mean when we're talking about being the change is the ability to win now. In other words, what's in it for you? If you do these things, we really believe you're going to survive and thrive this as we go forward and later. I absolutely 100% believe that if we go all in typical inside the L fashion on this stuff within ourselves and within our teams, do I think we're going to be better students? Yes. Better athletes? Yes. Better people? Yes. Do I think you could come out of the gate ready to win more, get more, all those things that you want? Yes. To put it a different way, I feel like if we don't do these things, you're going to come out ready to lose, ready to move backwards with bad habits, with soft habits, with lazy habits, with selfish habits. I don't think we want to lose the weight. I think we want to win the weight now and in the future. Final question we want to challenge you with as you think about this over the next couple of days. Coaches will put these questions out to you. You can scratch on them a little bit more. First was, what are your goals? Second, we were really asking, what are the different ways that you're going to begin to think about being the change? Are you better? Are you worse? How would you assess where you are? And right now, what is it you're going to do? What are you willing to commit to? Freshmen, do not think to yourself, well, look, I'm going to wait and see. I'm only a freshman. There are ways that this department and your team needs you personally now. And again, I think every single person is needed. It's just a matter of whether or not we challenge ourselves. One of my favorite quotes from Martin Luther King, he goes, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. We know he was talking about social justice, and I think that's still true as much as it has ever been. We have to keep moving forward. It's also true as we think about what it means to be the change. Some days you ain't going to be able to fly, then just run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, shuffle, crawl. But you're not doing it in isolation. When we see somebody else struggling, that's the difference. We have to pick them up so we have the kind of solidarity, unity of thought and action that says we are indeed all in this together. We are indeed all one. I think when things really break down is in desolation, and that comes from isolation. Be the change. That's what we're really talking about, is how to go about doing that so we can win the weight. I'm so grateful for your time. I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy to listen to this. I'm hoping you started to get some ideas of who we are as a department. I'm hoping that you can get some motivation for yourself and for your teammates. We're going to keep digging in on these workouts with you through your coaches, through the different push-ins and the different pieces. We're not giving this to you as something that you need to do. This is something that we're going to do together, but we're hoping that if you jump in with us on this, that you will indeed see that there's an opportunity for us to come out better, qualitatively and quantitatively better because of, not in spite of, but because of these adverse situations that we're working on. Can't thank you enough for patience at the beginning, willingness to stick with us tonight. I'll let Coach Evans take us out.
I know we all want to give Matt a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Appreciate everyone's time, and we look forward to seeing you on the Heights soon, hopefully again in person, Matt. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.